And so it begins, not with a thunderclap, not with a miracle of outer appearance, but with a breath you didn't know you were holding, released softly into the silence of your own being, because something in you is ready, not to strive, not to chase, but to remember that the universe is not outside you, that what you call life happening to you was only your own dream forgotten in the motion of waking. And now the dream begins to dissolve. You feel it already, a quiet unraveling of the false order of things, a gentle tilting of the mirror back to its source. For the universe does not work for you because of what you do. It works for you because of who you are, who you have always been, and who you are is not the one waiting, not the one pleading or hoping or bargaining. You are the seed and the sunlight, the author and the ink. You are the consciousness in which the universe takes shape. And so when you remember yourself rightly, all of creation rearranges to reflect that holy image. This is not mysticism. This is law. Most live backwards, assuming that action is cause and result is effect. But the truth is inverted. Consciousness is the only cause. Outer things are effects. Nothing can come to you uninvited by your inner state, and no effort can secure what your state denies. This is why so many strive endlessly, wearied by the weight of doing, while the still one, the silent one, receives without labor, not because of privilege, but because of understanding. The outer man toils, the inner man assumes, and what he assumes he becomes. So the question is not, how do I get the universe to work for me? The question is, what have I assumed the universe to be? For the answer is already made flesh around you. Look not at the mirror and demand it to change. Change the one gazing into it. If you imagine the world to be hostile, slow, resistant, then you will always encounter delay, not because the universe is punishing you, but because it is faithful to your image. It reflects the face you present. And if you look with eyes of love, if you walk in the felt knowing that all things are conspiring for your delight, you will see that evidence rise up, again and again, like spring from frozen ground. You do not need to convince the soil to honor the seed. You only need to plant it, and trust the rhythm of its unfolding. The same law governs your life. What you plant in imagination, in the sacred silence of acceptance, must blossom in form. The outer is not the source, it is the echo. And the echo always follows the sound. Do you feel it? The shift is not in what you do, but in where you dwell. When you abide in the end rushes to meet you. To live in the end is to live as though your desire were already fulfilled, without question, without needing signs or proof. To be it before you see it, to act from it, not toward it. This is the mystery that unlocks the entire universe. For what you are conscious of being, you will express. And if you make no room for doubt, if you saturate your inner world with the felt experience of the wish fulfilled, then all the outer world will bend to mirror that assumption. But there's a reason few ever experience this directly, not because it is hidden, but because it is too simple, too quiet. It asks for no effort, no performance, no convincing. It only asks for being, for stillness, for acceptance of the truth already within you. Most cannot bear the silence long enough to remember, but you, something in you has already begun to remember. That's why you are here. That's why the words resonate, not as new information, but as ancient recall. You are not learning, you are awakening, and as that truth settles in, you may begin to feel the edges of your old identity start to soften. You no longer need to hold the reins so tightly. You no longer need to control every outcome, anticipate every step. For you begin to trust the invisible. You begin to lean on the unseen. And the more you do, the more the universe, your universe, begins to reveal itself as faithful, fluid, alive, not because it changed, but because you did. Which brings us to the deeper mystery hidden in plain sight. And as you begin to trust what cannot yet be seen, a new ease arises, not from withdrawal, but from remembrance. You start to move, not to cause the world to react, but because you already know what the world must reflect. It no longer feels like effort, it feels like inevitability. You are no longer trying to make the universe respond. You are listening to what it has always been echoing back, not your words, not your wants, but your state. The truth you hold quietly, even when no one sees. especially then. And that quiet truth, that unspoken certainty, becomes the law unto your life. There is no striving in the divine. The lily does not toil. The bird does not build its wings by will. So why do you? Because you were taught to act from separation, to earn what is already yours, to chase what is waiting within you. But you are the heir, not the beggar, the dreamer, not the pawn. You were never meant to scrape and grasp and chase. You were meant to assume and rest, for rest is the highest sign of faith. When you truly believe it is done, you stop reaching for it. You walk as though the invisible promise were already clothed in form. You carry yourself with the ease of one who is no longer seeking. This is not delusion, this is dominion. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. That is the voice of imagination, ever responding to the one who believes. Not through pleading, but through assumption. And assumption is the secret key. You assume, not just with your thoughts, but with your inner posture, with the way you breathe, the way you sit, the way you enter a room. You become the version of yourself who already has, already is, already knows. You stop hoping. You stop watching the clock. You no longer look for proof, because proof is already within you. The universe cannot help but confirm what you persist in knowing. It has no choice. It is your mirror, not your master. And that mirror, so sensitive, so exact, waits only for your unwavering image. Most falter, not because the law fails, but because their gaze shifts. They look to the outer world and say, it is not here yet. And in that moment, they become the version who does not have. And so the world echoes back, lack. But the one who keeps their gaze inward, steady and still, who walks by faith and not by sight, such a one bends the universe to their inner song, not through will, through being. So let this truth become your stillness. You are not becoming, you are remembering. The end you seek already exists within you, as a felt reality, not as fantasy, not as hope, but as embodiment. You are not summoning outcomes. You are collapsing distance. The future is not far, it is folded within now. When you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you do not create the outcome, you select it. You are not building the house, you are entering it. Feel the difference in your body when you hear this. Notice the release, the softening, the invitation into peace. There is nothing to prove, no one to convince. The outer is slow to move only when the inner is restless. But when the inner becomes still, the outer rushes to meet it, because creation is finished. Your part is not to make, but to know, and knowing does not require logic, it requires intimacy, the kind that feels, without evidence, the kind that walks into a dark room, and knows the switch is there. You do not argue with the dark, you simply reach for light, and in the same way you reach inward, not to explain, but to experience. You claim the identity of the one who already dwells in the fulfilled desire, and from that sacred identity, all things are added, not some, all. This is why the universe begins to move for you, not because you commanded it with force, but because you whispered with certainty, because you touched the silent place, where nothing is missing, and chose to dwell there. And the longer you dwell, the more real it becomes, until the outer world, like clay softened by water, begins to shape itself around your wordless knowing. But what if that knowing could deepen even more, beyond assumption, into union? And as that hidden wholeness stirs beneath the surface of your mind, a new awareness dawns like the first light over a sleeping sea. You realize that what you once called desire was only the fragrance of your own completeness, calling you inward. The longing was never for something outside you. It was the song of remembrance, echoing from the chambers of your own heart, inviting you to awaken to what already is. There is no journey to completion, for you are complete now. There is no distance between you and your imagined fulfillment, except the thin veil of forgotten identity. You do not need to become anything. You only need to strip away the garments of separation you have worn too long, and stand once again as you were made whole, radiant, sufficient. Not in some future moment, but here, in this breath, in this seeing. Be still, and know that I am God. Not be busy, not be striving, be still, and in the stillness, know. This is the sacred rhythm of creation, the stillness that speaks louder than any action, the knowing that bends reality without lifting a finger. For when you know yourself rightly, The universe knows you rightly. And when the universe knows you rightly, it must mirror that knowing without fail. Feel how this shifts the center of your power. No longer outward but inward. No longer reactive, but creative. You do not respond to appearances. Appearances respond to you. You do not chase the shadow. You embody the light. You move not as one trying to influence a fickle world, but as one who has already established their kingdom within. And because it is established within, it must unfold without. The universe is not your adversary. It is your servant, a faithful echo, waiting for the master note of your being. And what is the master note? It is the tone of your identity, the silent, steady vibration of who you assume yourself to be. Not in words, not in fleeting thoughts, but in the deep unconscious fabric of your being. This is why you must guard your inner conversations, for they are the architects of your world. Every word you speak to yourself in the silence of your mind is a seed, and every seed bears after its kind. Speak to yourself as one who is already in possession of all you seek. Whisper to yourself the language of completion, not lack of gratitude, not longing, of presence, not absence, and you will see, without effort, without striving, that the universe, that great mirror of your soul, will begin to shimmer with new reflections. Opportunities will rise without warning. Paths will clear without planning. People and places and things will arrange themselves as if by some unseen hand, because they are moved by the unseen law you have set into motion within yourself. You do not need to know how. The how is not your concern. The seed does not unravel the mystery of its own blooming. It simply rests in the soil, trusting the life within it. Trust the life within you. Trust the process too vast for the mind to manage, but perfectly tailored by the spirit that is your very breath. And as you trust, something even deeper begins to unfold. The lines between you and the world soften further. You no longer see life as happening to you. You recognize that life is happening through you. You are not an island battered by the waves. You are the ocean itself, expressing wave after wave of your own being. And if you are the ocean, then what could ever be withheld from you? What desire could ever be denied? What outcome could stand apart from the vastness of your nature? The more you sink into this knowing, the more the imagined divisions of self and world dissolve. You are not a fragment hoping for wholeness. You are the whole, dreaming itself into myriad forms. But even this recognition is only the beginning, for there lies yet a deeper wonder, a mystery so profound, so simple, that it turns the entire nature of creation inside out, if you dare to feel it. And if you do dare to feel it, if you allow even the edges of your awareness to graze it, a quiet trembling begins within you. Not fear, but awe, a sacred shiver that moves through the soul when it glimpses what has always been true but long forgotten. The deepest mystery is this: there is no separation at all, not between you and your desire, not between you and the universe, not even between you and God. For what you call God is your own wonderful human imagination, clothed in the language of the divine. This is the pearl of great price, the treasure hidden in the field, that the power you once sought outside, above, beyond is within, closer than breath, closer than thought. It is your own I am, the name of the infinite resting quietly at the center of your being, not a being to be worshipped in distance, but a presence to be remembered in silence. I am that I am, the most sacred of all declarations, not as a statement of ego, but of origin. So when you say I am wealthy, I am loved, I am free, you are not begging for these things. You are identifying with the nature of the source. You are calling what already exists in spirit into form, the Word made flesh, and the Word is always I am. That is the point from which all things spring forth. Every assumption wrapped around it takes on life. Every state you marry with your I am becomes your world. This is why the law of assumption is not a technique but a law. Just as surely as fire burns and water flows, what you assume yourself to be becomes what you see. Not occasionally, not if you believe hard enough. Always. Assumption is creation, for creation is finished. Your assumption does not build the structure, it reveals it. The infinite realities exist now, side by side, like stations along a great radio band, and the state you dwell in determines the station you receive. So you do not need to fight for your desire. You need only to assume the feeling of its fulfillment, and abide there, gently, faithfully. And as you do, the outer world reconfigures to match the new signal you're sending. Not out of kindness, not out of reward, but out of obedience. For the universe is not personal, it is principle. And that principle is reflection. Do not be deceived by the silence after you assume. Do not be discouraged by the delay between cause and echo. The law is not delayed. You are simply moving through the unfolding, and your part is not to dig up the seed in doubt, but to water it in joy, to live from the state rather than in waiting for it. The moment you feel it real, it is real. The rest is simply the outpicturing of what already is. Can you rest there? Can you allow yourself to linger in the invisible long enough to let the visible take shape? Most cannot. Most abandon the state before the mirror has had time to reflect it. But you are beginning to see what few ever do. That reality is not solid. It is fluid, waiting for the mold of your assumption to pour itself into. And that mold is made from feeling, not force. You feel yourself to be it, and you become it. You let the mood of the wish fulfilled saturate your being, and you walk in that fragrance before the flower blooms. This is true faith, not the hoping for, but the embodying of the still, sure knowing that you already are what you have asked for, that your only job is to remain faithful to the state, even when nothing outside agrees, especially then, because that is when the shift begins. That is when the unseen currents turn, not at the moment you first declare it, but at the moment you refuse to leave it. When you stop measuring the gap, and begin living as though no gap ever existed, that is where power lives, not in the first thought, but in the sustained identity. And once this truth has taken root, a new kind of inner quiet arises, one that doesn't reach for evidence, but radiates knowing, one that no longer needs life to confirm anything, because you have become the confirmation itself. But what unfolds when even that quiet knowing gives way to something higher still, something that reveals you were never even the seeker to begin with? And as that quiet knowing deepens, soft as a hand brushing dew from the morning grass, something even more wondrous begins to unfold within you. The walls of effort and becoming, so long upheld by the mind, begin to crumble. In their place arises a living stillness, a presence so complete that it needs nothing. You realize, almost with a smile, that you were never truly the seeker at all. You were always the sought. It was not you reaching for the divine, it was the divine within you remembering itself. And in that remembrance, striving falls away. Desire itself softens into something purer, something quieter, no longer a reaching towards some imagined fulfillment, but a natural expression of who you already are. The waves do not struggle to crash upon the shore. The sun does not strain to rise. They move from the fullness of their nature. And you too are beginning to move from fullness, not from need. It was never about acquiring or achieving. It was about unveiling. It was about seeing that everything you longed for was simply a reflection of your own infinite being, shimmering just beyond the veil of forgetting. All that the Father hath is mine, not someday, not if you are good enough, now, already, always. Can you feel the freedom hidden inside that realization? The universe is not granting you favors, it is unveiling your inheritance. Each assumption you hold is not a request, it is a claim. Each state you enter is not a petition, it is a homecoming. You are not knocking on a door hoping it will open. You are remembering that you are the door, and it was never locked. And so you step into your states with a different spirit, no longer with trembling hands, but with the quiet certainty of belonging. You no longer ask, will it come? You know that it must, because it already exists in the invisible, and the visible must yield to the unseen, not by force, not by begging, but by the law that cannot be broken. The more you dwell here, the more you see that even the timing is perfect, that what once seemed like delays were only the orchestration of love, preparing you to hold what you had already claimed, that no good thing is ever withheld, only delivered in its appointed season, when your inner soil is ready to receive it without fear, without striving, without loss. And if you are willing, you can rest in that season, even before the outer signs appear. You can walk with the poise of one who already possesses all. You can live each moment as a quiet song of gratitude for what is unseen, but more real than anything the senses can grasp, because you have begun to touch the truth that changes everything, that reality is not outside in, it is inside out. The world is clay in the hands of your inner potter. The shapes it takes are only the echoes of what you have dared to believe about yourself. So you practice the art of quiet assumption. You breathe into the feeling of already being. You wrap yourself in the atmosphere of your wish fulfilled, and walk in that fragrance day after day, hour after hour, heartbeat after heartbeat. And though the world may show you nothing at first, though appearances may taunt or tempt, you do not waver, for you know that appearances are old news, past projections of past states, and you have moved beyond them. You stand now at the edge of a far greater understanding, a doorway that leads beyond even manifestation itself, beyond creating outcomes, beyond achieving goals, a place where the self, the universe and the dream dissolve into a single seamless reality, where there is nothing left to get, and only everything to be. And as you linger in this holy threshold, you begin to sense it calling, an invitation not merely to shape the world, but to awaken fully as the world itself. And as you hear that quiet calling, as you feel its golden thread pulling you inward, something even deeper unfolds, like a garden blooming from within your chest, petals you did not know you had. For the invitation now is not simply to manifest one dream, nor even to walk among many, but to recognize yourself as the very field in which all dreams arise. You are not separate from the world you shape. You are the shaping itself. You are not an actor placed upon a stage. You are the stage, the script, the light that animates it all. And in this seeing, a sacred humility descends, a reverence for the simplicity of it all, that it was never about achievement or attainment, but about unveiling what has always been true. I am, before any identity was worn, before any dream was dreamt, before any form took shape in your awareness, there was only the unformed, shining consciousness of being itself, silent, pure, complete. It is here in this great stillness that the law finds its highest expression. For when you know yourself as the source, there is no longer any effort in creation. You do not strive to make the universe work for you. You recognize that the universe is your being unfolding itself in perfect rhythm. To desire then is to breathe. To assume is to blink. To manifest is simply to exhale what was already inhaled in the silence of knowing. Before Abraham was I am, not I was I am, timeless, unchanging, ever present. You stand upon the foundation of eternity, not moving forward in time toward fulfillment, but standing still in the center of all possibilities, choosing not by struggle, but by surrender to the inner movement of your heart, which is the voice of God within you. Feel how light it becomes when you see this. The burden falls away, the chasing falls away. Even the hunger for specific forms softens into a deeper contentment, because you realize that everything you could ever desire is already held within your own consciousness, waiting for the gentle permission of your assumption to take form. There is no lack, there is only the delay of recognition. You no longer ask, will it happen for me? You understand that it has happened already, in the invisible, and now you allow it to unfold in the visible, with the ease of sunrise, with the inevitability of the tide. You live in the end, not by force, but by the effortless knowing that the end is already contained within you. And so you move differently in the world. You speak differently. You even think differently. You no longer plant seeds of fear or doubt, for you understand they are but whispers of forgetfulness, and you have remembered too much to fall asleep again. You water only the seeds of certainty, of peace, of quiet knowing. And as you do, life bends itself in ways that seem miraculous to the outer mind. Doors open where none seem to exist. Paths clear that once were overgrown. People and circumstances align, as if by unseen hands. But you know there are no unseen hands moving pieces outside you. It is your own hand, moving all, shaping all, because you are the dreamer and the dream. And yet, as even this realization settles, like soft rain upon your spirit, you feel another layer of the mystery stirring beneath, a movement even gentler, even more profound. For beyond being the dreamer and the dream, lies the deepest remembrance of all, that you are neither. You are the awareness within which both arise and dissolve. And to touch that awareness is to awaken fully, beyond all need, beyond all form, into the eternal I am. And what might happen if you were willing to fall even deeper into that holy abyss of yourself, where nothing needs to be added, and everything is already complete? And if you were willing, truly willing, to fall into that holy abyss, that sacred nothingness out of which all things come, you would feel the last veil dissolving. There would be no struggle, no resistance, no lingering question, only the deep, warm silence of being without need. And in that silence, you would finally see that even the most beautiful desire was but a ripple upon your still waters, a reflection of your own infinite depth seeking to be known. This is not detachment in the cold sense, not abandonment of life, but the most intimate embrace of it. For when you no longer need to grasp, you finally hold. When you cease searching, you find. When you let go of becoming, you become everything. You do not lose your desires, you redeem them. You no longer chase the fruit, you become the tree. And the tree bears fruit, not by effort, but by nature. You were never meant to earn your blessings, you were only meant to awaken to their presence. They are not outside your reach, they are inside your name, and your name is I am, the foundation, the root, the divine core of every fulfilled desire. When you declare I am, you ignite creation. What follows is the form, the pattern, the echo. But the source was always you. So can you now begin to understand why the universe responds to your assumptions? It is not because you are manipulating matter. It is because you are the author of it. You write the script by your inner state, and the stage must shift accordingly. All matter is obedient to the I am behind it. And when that I am rests in knowing, the whole world becomes soft, receptive clay. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. That decree is not shouted, it is not forced, it is whispered in the quiet place, it is spoken in stillness, where imagination and identity entwine. You do not command the universe by voice, you shape it by assumption, by the feeling of already being, and so the path becomes lighter, not heavier. Each step you take is not to move towards something, but to express the one who already is. You walk as one fulfilled, not seeking fulfillment. You speak as one who knows, not one trying to convince. You no longer reach from lack, you radiate from completion. And what once felt like work now feels like worship. What once felt like waiting now feels like unfolding. You rest in the motion of your own divine current, trusting that every wave knows its return to shore. Nothing is delayed, for all things flow perfectly from the unseen into the seen, in the season your faith allows. This is the ease born of true identity, not laziness, but surrender, not passivity, but peace. You let go of forcing things to happen, and instead you harmonize with their inevitable arrival. You do not demand the flower to bloom, you make your home in spring, and in that warmth, all things begin to grow. Even now you may feel that growth rising gently within, not as a rush, but as a blooming, a quiet certainty that you are not on your way to fulfillment, you are the fulfillment remembering itself, and the more you remember, the more life bends, not to grant your desire, but to reflect your being. But what becomes of desire, when even this reflection dissolves, when there is nothing left to seek, because you have become the light behind all forms, when the need to manifest fades into the joy of simply being, what then awakens in the silence beyond silence? And when even the joy of fulfillment dissolves into the stillness beyond form, something ancient stirs awake, a presence that has watched through every dream, every longing, every echo of separation. It has no face, no name, no goal, yet it is more intimate than breath, more enduring than time. And now you begin to feel it not as something you reach for, but as something that has always been watching from behind your eyes. The light behind the desire, the silence behind the word, the being before the I am. This is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of reality without conditions. When there is nothing left to fix, nothing left to gain, you meet the original stillness, the ground from which all things arise. It needs no improvement. It does not evolve. It simply is. And within it all that you once sought begins to soften into peace. Not the peace of resolution, but the peace of wholeness, undisturbed, untouched, unborn. It is here that you understand that the true purpose of the law was never just to manifest objects or experiences. These were only stepping stones, sacred invitations into deeper seeing. The law of assumption was the language of the divine itself, disguised in form, gently leading you back to this place of total surrender. For to live in the end is to live beyond beginning. And what you assumed into being was never outside. It was your own identity revealing itself step by step. Now the world becomes a mirror, not just of what you believe, but of what you are. And what you are is light. Not metaphorically, but literally, awareness made visible. Not the body, not the mind, not the roles you've played, but the shining witness in which all things arise and pass. You do not look for signs. You are the sign. You do not ask for miracles. You are the miracle in motion, and still the universe obeys, not because you speak, but because you rest, not because you strive, but because you know. You become the unmoved mover, the still center around which all things swirl, not to control them, but to illuminate them with presence. The kingdom of God is within you. And in this holy place, there are no needs, only expressions, no desires, only radiance. You do not live to get, you live to give from the endless wellspring of being. And what you give is not a thing, but a vibration, a frequency of stillness, so rich, so complete, that all who come near are changed without effort. You become the tree whose branches offer shade, without seeking praise, the sun that warms without thought, the well that overflows without concern for lack. You are not trying to make the universe work for you, because now you see, you are the universe. You are the invisible made visible, the timeless clothed in time. And from this knowing, all manifestation becomes effortless. For it is no longer about correcting lack, but about expressing fullness. You assume the state not to get, but to reflect, not to fill a void, but to overflow from grace. You walk as one who knows there is no end to the giving, no limit to the light, no edge to the self. And yet, even in this abundance, the mystery only deepens. For if there is no separation, no division between self and world, between thought and form, then what remains but the pure unfolding of being itself, without reason, without need, without boundary? What awakens when there is nothing left to awaken to, only the endless blooming of the one who never began? And when there is nothing left to awaken to, when the path dissolves and the seeker no longer stands apart from the scene, what remains is not emptiness, it is expansion. The eternal blooming of the I Am, unbound by form, untouched by striving, resting in itself as the source and substance of all that is. You begin to feel this not as an idea, but as a vibration, a quiet hum within your chest that speaks not in words but in knowing. There is no urgency here, no arrival, just the unfolding of what has always been whole. And now the world around you, once filled with questions and contrast, begins to feel softer, more fluid, more intimate, not because it changed, but because you have remembered the place from which it arises. You do not observe reality as a visitor, you recognize yourself in its every detail. The sun does not shine apart from you, the wind does not move without you. All things live and move and have their being in your awareness, for your awareness is the breath of God. And now even the law, so vital in the beginning, becomes less of a method and more of a melody, a rhythm you no longer need to think about, because you are living in harmony with it. You no longer perform assumption, you are the assumed state. There is no gap between desire and fulfillment, because the moment a desire forms, it is clothed in the substance of your knowing. You feel it real because it is real, and the world simply mirrors your certainty in perfect time. This is the effortless nature of true creation, not the effortlessness of indifference, but the grace of oneness. You are no longer trying to become, you are simply allowing yourself to be, and in that allowing, life flows. Manifestation becomes not a task, but a consequence. The fruit of a tree deeply rooted in I Am. Feel how deeply your roots now reach into the silence beneath thought, into the stillness beneath the image, into the holy ground, where all things are already whole. It is from here that the world bends, not from the mind that calculates or the will that strains, but from the soul that knows itself to be the eternal seed of every form. Your reality is no longer something you must tend with effort, but something that tends to you because you live in alignment with your true name. And when you speak now, it is with a different tongue, not the language of wanting, but of being, not declarations made to convince the world, but sacred utterances spoken in stillness, knowing the world has already heard. Let there be light, and light was. So it is with your word. When it arises from identity, it does not return void. It fulfills because it is spoken from the fulfilled self. You walk through life not as a beggar of outcomes, but as their quiet author, not attached, yet deeply present, not pushing, yet profoundly certain. And in this presence, the universe moves with you like breath in your lungs, responding before the thought has even taken shape. Your inner world leads, the outer follows, always. And now even desire begins to transform, not disappearing, but refining, becoming more subtle, more sacred, no longer rooted in lack, but in expression. You do not want for what is missing, you feel inspired to reveal more of what already is. Creation becomes communion, Manifestation becomes art. Life becomes an ever-deepening dance between the seen and unseen, and still, the mystery unfolds. For if all things are within you, and all forms arise from your state, then who is the one who assumes? Who is the one who observes? Who is this presence that stands even beyond the law itself, watching all unfold, yet never touched by what passes through it? What is this eternal witness, and what happens when you become not just aware of it, but aware as asterisk? And as the question echoes through the chambers of your soul, who is this witness, this presence untouched by form? A sacred stillness answers without words. It answers by being. You do not become aware of it. You become aware as it. The shift is subtle, like the quiet hush just before dawn, yet it changes everything. You are no longer the one looking at the world from behind the eyes of a person. You are the awareness in which the person and the world appear. It is not a distancing, it is a deepening, a falling inward into the infinite. The more you rest here, the more you see that every identity, every assumption, every movement of desire has been held within this silent, eternal field. You have worn many names, spoken many truths, walked many imagined paths, but beneath them all, you have always been this formless, changeless, free. The I am before I am this, or I am that. The awareness that holds all states without clinging to any. Here, the law of assumption is not discarded, it is transfigured, no longer used to shape a better dream, but to honor the creative nature of consciousness itself. You do not use the law to escape your reality. You see that there was never anything to escape, only something to embody, to become, to reveal. Even now, feel the soft edges of your former self dissolving. You no longer need to uphold the image of a seeker. You no longer need to be someone moving towards something. You are the canvas. You are the light. You are the field of pure potential in which all things arise and return. The outer world, with its seeming solidity, becomes transparent, no more real than the scenery in a sleeping dream. Beautiful, yes. Tangible, yes, but not fixed, not separate. And from this place, your assumptions become sacred tools, not strategies. You do not use them to control life, but to harmonize with its unfolding. You assume the highest truths, not to get something, but to express what you already know yourself to be. You say, I am peace, not to create peace, but because peace is your nature. You say, I am abundance, not to draw it near, but because lack was always the illusion. You say, I am free, because bondage never truly existed outside belief. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Not the truth about the world, the truth about yourself, that you are not a fragment lost in time. You are the whole, dreaming of division. And as the dream dissolves, so too does the effort, the tension, the resistance. Life becomes a movement of grace, not will. Even creation itself feels different now, no longer a tool to fulfill the small self, but a radiant unfolding of the divine through form. You do not need to prove your power, you only need to rest in it. To live as the witness is to live in effortless authority, not because you control, but because you are asterisk. This is the secret all great mystics have whispered in parables and poems, that the real you cannot be named, cannot be grasped, cannot be harmed. It is not the one who manifests, it is the one in whom manifests. It is the one in whom manifestation appears. You are not the actor, you are the light projecting the scene. You are not the wave, you are the ocean knowing itself in motion. And now, even the longing for outcomes dissolves into this wider love. You do not abandon your desires, you bless them, release them, and let them return to you transformed. There is no fear in their unfolding, because you are no longer bound to form. You are free, even as you walk through the play of time. But what might unfold if you lived every moment, every breath, not as the seeker of change, but as the changeless itself? What would your life become if you no longer tried to shift your state, but remembered that you are the one who holds all states in the palm of awareness? And if you could live every moment as the one who holds all states, what then could you fear? What would remain undone? You would no longer strive to enter the state of wealth or healing or love. You would know yourself as the very space in which these states appear and fade like clouds passing through an endless sky. No longer the passer-by, no longer the cloud, but the sky itself, unmoved, unchanging, always containing, never contained. You would find yourself walking through life differently, not with urgency, but with presence, not driven by what must happen, but guided by what already is. Every breath would be a revelation, every step a silent confirmation that nothing is missing, and nothing ever was. The illusion of becoming dissolves in the light of this seeing. For what can you become that you are not already, in essence now? This is the true fulfillment of living in the end, not the end of an event, but the end of illusion, the end of separation, the end of mistaking the shadow for the self. When you live from the end, you do not become a better version of yourself. You cease identifying as one who must be better. You stop measuring. You stop comparing. You no longer look to the mirror for proof. You simply asterisk our asterisk, and the world conforms. And how could it not? For it has always been your servant, not your master, your echo, not your cause. The moment you stop reacting to it as something separate, you begin to shape it effortlessly, not with will, but with being. You assume not to acquire, but to return. You return to yourself, again and again, until even that journey dissolves, and all that remains is stillness. In that stillness, all things become possible, because all things are already held in seed within you, and the seeds need no force to grow, only light, only stillness, only knowing. You do not make the seed become a tree. You rest in the truth that the tree is already within the seed. You do not force your world to change. You remember that the state already holds the world you seek. I am the resurrection and the life. These are not mere words. They are the revelation of your nature. The moment you assume the state, the moment you resurrect the feeling of already being, you breathe life into form. And what you resurrect from within, the world must reflect without. And so you begin to approach your desires not as problems to be solved, but as doors to be walked through. You step into the felt atmosphere of the result, not to test the law, but because it is natural to do so. It feels familiar, because it is your true home. The state of fulfillment is not new, it is remembered. You have lived it before, in imagination, and now the echo must come. You no longer beg the universe for signs. You realize that you are the sign, that the invisible shift within you is already enough. And in that knowing, your gaze becomes softer, your breath deeper. Time no longer feels like a barrier, but a bridge. You walk with it, not against it, trusting that what is yours is already drawn to you by the silent magnetism of your state. And if in moments, doubt arises, if the old self whispers of separation, of delay, you do not resist it. You simply return. You close your eyes, breathe deeply, and dwell once more in the feeling of the end, not to chase it, but to be it, to sit in it until it becomes your natural air, until it no longer feels imagined, but inevitable. This is the secret that was never truly hidden. The universe works for you because it is you, because there is no outer power determining your fate, only the reflection of what you have dared to be within. And when you know this, not just with the mind, but with the marrow of your being, nothing can be denied you. But what of the rarest states, the ones that seem furthest from reach, too grand, too divine to assume? What if even these are simply waiting for you to remember that they too belong to your name? And as that quiet wondering stirs within you, what of those grand estates, those visions so vast, they seem almost sacred to behold? You begin to sense a truth even deeper than before. These higher states, these most radiant fulfillments, are not beyond you. They are not reserved for a distant future or a chosen few. They are already inscribed within your being, waiting for your recognition, waiting for your bold, gentle claim. For the heights you dare to imagine are only the reflections of the heights already hidden in your own soul. Nothing appears in your heart by accident. No dream whispers to you that is not already yours in the invisible. When you feel the pull of a mighty vision, a life filled with beauty, power, abundance, and peace, it is not a fantasy reaching out to you. It is your own self reaching back. You are not meant to shrink before these visions. You are meant to wear them, to clothe yourself inwardly with their feeling, until the invisible becomes as near to you as your breath. All things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive. But believing does not mean waiting. It means embodying, living from the state as though it were already your reality, until the world must echo back your silent decree. So, when the vast desire rises up within you, do not tremble, do not hesitate. Do not wonder if it is too much, too grand, too unattainable. Understand that the very fact you can conceive, it means you can contain it. You are not being teased by possibility. You are being invited into a deeper remembering of who you are. And the path to that remembering is not struggle. It is not repetition. It is not convincing yourself through effort. It is the soft and steady act of surrender, the gentle folding of yourself into the feeling of already being. You assume the grandest vision the same way you assume the smallest, by feeling its truth within you now, without strain, without pleading, with the quiet confidence of one who knows that to be conscious of a thing is to call it into expression. You do not ask, can I become this? You ask, can I accept that I already am? And the answer is always yes, for you are the container of all states, and the state you dwell in is the world you birth. Nothing is too big for you because nothing is outside of you. Feel now how the vastness of your being stretches out before you, limitless as the open sky. Every fulfilled dream, every beautiful unfolding you have ever longed for, already exists in the invisible tapestry of your I am. They are not separate from you. They are facets of you, awaiting embodiment. And as you sink into this knowing, the sense of waiting dissolves. There is nothing to wait for. There is only the soft unfolding of what has already been planted in the still soil of your imagination. The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you step into the life that matches it. And if the outer world lingers in old reflections, you do not waver. You know that the new image has been cast, and the mirror must respond in its time. The bridge of incidents will unfold without your effort. People will appear, paths will clear, resources will gather, because they must, not because you forced them, but because your world cannot help but reflect the being you have chosen to embody. So you walk with a lightness now, a softness. You do not strain to make things happen. You do not grasp at signs or chase after evidence. You rest, you assume, you live from the unseen with more certainty than the seen. And even now, a deeper call begins to rise, not to assume more, not to create more, but to become still enough to hear the voice beneath all voices, the voice that has been whispering to you from before the foundations of the world, calling you not only to live in the end, but to live beyond even ends and beginnings, into the eternal now. And as that deeper core rises, soft and ancient within you, it draws you into a space beyond all striving, beyond all reaching, a place where the end and the beginning melt into the single breath of now. Here, you are not moving toward fulfillment. You are living from its endless wellspring. You are not waiting for the unseen to become seen. You are dwelling in the truth that it already is. This now is not a point in time, fleeting and fragile. It is the eternal present, the ground of all being, the holy moment from which every form is birthed, and to which every form returns. And as you sink into it, you realize it is not events that must change. It is not outcomes that must be rearranged. It is only your recognition that must deepen. Your awareness that this very breath, this very heartbeat, is the portal to everything you have ever sought. For in the now, there is no distance between you and your assumption. There is no gap between the seed and the harvest. There is only one seamless act of being. And in this act, all things are complete. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, not tomorrow's faith, not someday's evidence. Now, feel how that changes the very fabric of your being. You are no longer asking life to meet you at some future point. You are embodying the answer now. You are standing in the fulfilled state, as surely as the oak stands within the acorn. And the outer world, with all its seeming weight and resistance, becomes light as air before the power of your stillness. For when you live in the eternal now, the universe bends not because you push it, but because you have already become what it reflects. You assume your state in the invisible, and you dwell there, not to summon but to celebrate. You walk the earth lightly, carrying within you the secret music that moves mountains without lifting a stone. And this is why the universe must work for you. It is not obedience to effort. It is response to being. The moment you declare inwardly, it is done, and feel the truth of that declaration in your bones, the mirror of reality begins to shift. Not instantly in appearance, perhaps, but instantly in essence. And the appearance must follow the essence as surely as the tide follows the moon. You are no longer conditioned by time. You are no longer at the mercy of appearances. You do not look to the senses to confirm your state. You look only to the inner knowing, the felt reality of already being. And the more faithfully you abide in this unseen truth, the faster the seen must conform. It does not require force. It does not require explanation. It requires only surrender, trust, the willingness to be still when the world clamors for action, the courage to know when the senses scream for evidence, the grace to remain anchored in the unseen while the scene reconfigures itself in silence. And oh, what beauty unfolds from that trust! What quiet miracles bloom at your feet, not because you have conquered the world, but because you have ceased to war against it. You have become one with it. You have become the living center from which it takes its shape. And as you rest more deeply in this now, a new question stirs, gentle yet insistent. What if the greatest act of creation was never the molding of outer circumstances at all, but the revelation of your own timeless, limitless nature? What if the true fulfillment has always been to remember yourself as the dreamer awake within the dream, shaping all by the silent power of your being? And as that question begins to settle in your chest, not as a puzzle but as a remembering, you feel the veil thinning even more. The dreamer stirs, not as one who must escape the dream, but as one who delights in shaping it. You begin to see that manifestation was never the destination, but a mirror, a symbol, a language through which your divine self whispers back to you. Asterisk, I am here. I have always been here. You are not the one waiting for proof. You are the one giving it form. And when you live from this truth, not just intellectually, but intimately, life softens its edges. The sharp corners of time dull. The pressure to become fades, because you are no longer building a self from fragments. You are revealing a self that is already whole. From this place, the law becomes as natural as breath. You no longer ask how to assume, how to imagine, how to believe. You simply do it, as effortlessly as a flower turns toward the sun. It is no longer something you apply. It is what you are. You assume the state as naturally as you wake from sleep, and the dream reshapes around your awakening. You begin to realize that everything that once felt far is already folded within your awareness. You are not walking toward it. You are walking from it. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is not the key to the door. It asterisk is asterisk, the door. It opens not by force, but by familiarity. When the state feels more real than the world cannot help but obey. And so you no longer search for signs. You become the sign. You no longer need reassurance. You asterisk are asterisk the reassurance. You carry within you the certainty that what you have assumed must take form, not because of time, but because of law. Time is not the creator, it is the servant. And when you are anchored in the end, time collapses under the weight of your knowing. Call those things which be not as though they were. That is not delusion, it is divine remembrance. You are not pretending, you are revealing. You are peeling back the layers of delay and doubt, and letting what is already true rise to the surface of form. You say, I am, and reality moves, not because the words are magic, but because you speak them from the seat of being. And from that seat creation becomes sacred play, no longer heavy, no longer urgent. You no longer chase fulfillment. You asterisk express asterisk. You no longer hope for the outcome. You asterisk embody asterisk. And the outer world becomes like clay in your hands, not because you wrestle with it, but because you no longer forget who you are. There is no longer a need to fix or change. Even the desire to manifest becomes lighter. It is no longer burdened with lack, no longer tangled in fear. You assume the highest states not to rescue yourself, but to radiate your truth more fully. You become a vessel for the divine, not as effort, but as nature. And yet even here, something deeper calls to you, a whisper beyond assumption, a stillness beyond fulfillment. For once you know that you are the dreamer, and you know that you are the dream, you begin to sense that you are also the silence that holds them both. What might unfold if you no longer identified as the one who assumes, but as the still awareness in which all assumption arises and returns? And as that question breathes through you, quiet, reverent, alive, you begin to feel a loosening, not a falling away of power, but the release of the need to grasp, the release of doing, even the sacred kind. For beyond all assuming, beyond all states, there is the awareness that holds them, that watches them rise and pass, like waves on the eternal sea. That awareness is you. You are not merely the one who selects a state. You are the stillness that makes all selection possible. You are the space in which every reality blooms and fades, the silence that remains when all assumptions have played their part, the knowing before any name is spoken. And from this depth, something extraordinary begins to unfold, not the thrill of creation, but the peace of unity. You are not just the operant power. You are the witness of power itself. You are the formless essence behind all form. And the more you rest here, the more the burden of becoming dissolves into the grace of being. This is the deepest secret, that the law is real, and creation obeys it. Yes, but even the law is held within a higher reality, a stillness that does not strive to manifest, because it sees nothing as missing, a presence that is not concerned with states, because it contains all states, and remains untouched by them. From this higher seeing, your manifestations continue, but they are no longer heavy with meaning. They no longer serve to prove your power. They become art, light, expression, not compensation for lack, but celebration of fullness. And this fullness flows through you, effortlessly when you abide, not in the assumption, but in the awareness from which all assumption arises. You may still imagine, you may still enter the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but now you do so with gentleness, with grace, without tension, because you are not lost in the state. You are anchored in the awareness that the state appears within, and that awareness is forever still, forever whole, forever enough. This is why you no longer panic when results take time. You know time is a ripple on the surface of your consciousness. You no longer fear delay, because you no longer define yourself by outcomes. You know who you are, and because you know you can let the world unfold without clinging. And in that letting go, the universe becomes even more responsive, not because you try harder, but because you become lighter, emptier of resistance. You no longer need to prove anything to yourself. You no longer identify as the one seeking. You rest as the one who sees. Before they call, I will answer. That is the voice of awareness. It moves before thought, responds before speech, manifests before you even declare a need. Because it knows there is no need. There is only unfolding, and that unfolding is already whole. Now when you close your eyes to imagine, it is not to escape, but to play. You drop into the feeling of a state, not because you must have it, but because it is a joy to wear. You dwell in the end, not because the beginning is flawed, but because the end reveals more of your infinite self, and you return again and again, not to the longing, not to the striving, but to the silence behind it all. You touch the still center that has no desire, no fear, no past, no future, and in that holy silence, you find the truth that liberates all things. I am, and that is enough. But even in this deepest rest, something luminous begins to rise, not as form, not as fulfillment, but as light itself. What if the true gift of assumption was never the manifested thing, but the revelation of the one who needs nothing, and creates everything? And as that light begins to rise, not from the world but from the deep within, you begin to recognize it as the very source you had been searching for all along. It is not new. It is not earned. It is the original brightness of your being, shining quietly beneath every dream, every desire, every state. Not a light that comes and goes, but the light in which all things come and go. You do not become this light. You remember that you are it, the one who imagined, the one who assumed, the one who created worlds and called them experience. And now as the veil thins even more, you realize the greatest gift the law has given you is not the shape of outcomes, but the unshakable awareness of your own divine essence. This is why you feel peace even before the thing appears, because you know it was never about the thing. It was about the return to this radiant stillness, the gentle presence that lacks nothing. And from that presence, what you once called desire becomes a current, not a craving, a sacred unfolding, not a demand. You begin to see that your desires were never flaws, to correct or lacks to fix. They were messages, invitations, holy signals rising up from the infinite self, showing you where to shine, what to awaken, what garment to wear in the dream. And as you answered them, not with need, but with assumption, you weren't chasing things. You were unveiling the self that already held them. So you bless your desires, even now, not because they complete you, but because they called you home. They led you inward, past the noise of appearances, into the clarity of identity, into the knowing that to assume is to become, and to become is to remember what has always been true. Let your light so shine before men. This is not instruction to seek attention. It is a command to stop hiding, to let the brilliance of your true nature express itself through every word, every gesture, every moment, to let the state you've assumed become the song you live, not to prove, but to radiate, not to force, but to reveal. And now the radiance does the work. You don't move the world, it moves around you. You don't strive to align, it aligns itself to your stillness. You no longer wrestle with what is seen, you rest in what is true. The outer bends to the rhythm of the inner, because it must, not by favor, but by law. This is why assumption works. Not because it makes things happen, but because it places you in the identity where all things are already happening. You step into the end, and the world catches up. You feel it real, and the form cannot resist. You stop reacting, and reality reshapes around the calm of your being. But this calm, this peace, is not passive, it is powerful. It is the silence that split the sea, the stillness from which all sound springs. You are not empty, you are full, not of effort, but of awareness, not of plans, but of presence. And in that presence, the entire universe bows to serve the one who no longer forgets who they are. You've gone beyond becoming, you've gone beyond seeking. You are now resting in the light that assumes without strain, and watches as the world takes shape like mist around a sunrise. And yet, as you sit in this holy stillness, something softer still begins to rise, something not seeking to create, or command, or even radiate, but something that simply is a presence deeper than light, closer than silence. What awakens when even creation becomes a gentle echo, and only pure being remains? And as even the radiance becomes quiet, even the movement of creation fades into stillness, something else begins to stir beneath it all. Something older than desire, older than identity, older even than the law itself. It is not a voice, not a thought. It is the simple, boundless awareness of being, not being someone not being something just being, without form, without story, without state. And it is enough. There is no need to assume. Here, no need to imagine or project or unfold. You rest in the holy hush of what you are without effort. And from this sacred non-doing, you begin to see what few ever glimpse, that all creation is an echo, that every state, every imagined scene, every manifestation was a movement within this deeper stillness, not to fix, not to gain, but to reflect the mystery of the I am in form. You are now seated at the origin, not above life, but beneath it, not removed, but deeply within. And here, even the concept of the universe working for you dissolves. For you realize there is no universe outside of you. There is no thing to come to you. It is all within, all unfolding in the mirror of your own awareness. No giver and no gift, only the one who is both. This is the true Sabbath, the rest of God. The moment when you cease your labors, not because the work is finished in the outer, but because it has always been finished in the inner. You return to the seventh day of creation, where nothing more is required, and all is complete. You are not trying to bring anything into being. You are simply acknowledging what already is. And from that acknowledgement, life flows, not with strain, not with striving, but with the rhythm of wholeness. You breathe, and the world breathes with you. You know, and the reflection takes shape without resistance, not because you pushed it there, but because you are no longer resisting it. Even the law, even the beloved practice of assumption, now takes on a new texture, not as a means, but as a melody, a gentle song sung from wholeness, not for gain. You do not assume to get, you assume to express the fullness you already contain. You select your states not as solutions, but as songs of praise to the infinite self you now remember yourself to be. And in this remembering, even fear loses its voice. There is nothing to fear, because there is nothing outside of you. No power, no condition, no separate will. All is within. All is shaped from the still center of your being, where the dreamer and the dream are one. So you relax your grip on outcomes. You surrender the timelines. You no longer measure how long it takes for the outer to match the inner. You simply rest in the knowing that it must, and more than that, that it already has. For in this space beyond form, all is now, all is done. You are not waiting for creation. You are abiding in its fullness. And should you choose to imagine again, to feel again, to dwell in a state, do so as a painter who knows the canvas is infinite. Do so as a dancer who knows the music rises from within. Let your assumptions be gentle, your vision be soft, your inner world be rich, not with effort, but with trust. For you no longer use the law to arrive, you use it to express, and the expression, no matter how grand or subtle, is simply love made visible. You do not chase the dream, you live it, from the place where dreaming and waking are the same. But if you were to sit, quietly, in that place where no assumption is needed, no manifestation desired, if you were to remain in the silent I am without reaching at all, what might you find there, waiting behind even the light of creation? And if you were to remain there, utterly still in the center of being, unoccupied by even the most beautiful desire, you would begin to feel something even more intimate than power, more sacred than fulfillment. You would begin to feel love, not the love that moves between two, not the love that seeks or hopes, but the love that simply is, the love that holds the universe in its invisible hands, the love that breathes you. It does not arrive, it does not increase, it is not caused. It is the first presence, the last presence, the unchanging presence. And you realize with unspeakable softness that this love is not something you receive, it is something you are. It is what remains, when all assumptions fall silent, when even the radiance of your imagination bows to the holiness of being. You do not need to project this love. You do not need to send it out. It is not a doing. It is the light in which all doing arises. It is the fragrance of your essence, the stillness beneath the stillness, the feeling beneath the word I am. And when you are resting in it, not trying to use it, not trying to apply it, just resting, you become what the world has forgotten, the divine remembering itself. You are not separate from this love. You are its form. You are its vessel. You are its voice in the world of time. From this place creation becomes play, not performance, not pressure. You imagine, not to get, but to reflect. You assume states, not to complete yourself, but to sing a song of selfhood. You live in the end, not because it proves your power, but because it allows you to rest in your truest rhythm. You begin to see how gentle the law really is, how softly it obeys your state, how quietly it bends to the tones of your inner being. There is no battle, there is no earning, there is only recognition, and that recognition is love. You are not rewarded for your assumptions, you are revealed through them, for in Him we live, and move and have our being. That is not poetry, it is spiritual fact. You live within this divine presence, as a fish lives in the sea, unaware of the water, because it is all there is. This love does not come and go, it does not increase with goodness, or diminish with doubt, it remains. And the more you become aware of it, the more you begin to realize, it is not responding to your consciousness, it is your consciousness. This is the final folding inward, the quiet truth that all that you've assumed, all that you've imagined, all that you've created, has never left this one field of love. Even your desires were love calling itself forward. Even your delays were love deepening its roots. Even the moments of confusion were love preparing a clearer gaze. And now, with no effort at all, you feel how the universe becomes gentle around you, how things arrive without push, how paths open without question, how doors swing wide without needing to knock. Because you are no longer trying to make the universe work for you. You have become one with the presence that moves it all. You no longer fear the unknown, because you no longer live outside of it. You rest in the unfolding, not as one who waits, but as one who is asterisk. And in this rest, miracles are no longer extraordinary. They are expected. They are natural. They are simply the outbreath of the one who has stopped forgetting. But if even the miracles become ordinary, if even the movement of form no longer holds you, what might be revealed in the place where nothing moves, and yet everything is held in perfect love? And if you linger there, where miracles are no longer surprises but simple breathings of being, you find yourself entering a silence more profound than anything you have yet known. A silence not empty but full, alive. A silence where nothing needs to happen because all is already complete. And yet from this stillness, all things arise without effort, without cause, without separation. In that stillness, you see clearly. Creation was never your burden, it was your joy. The power to assume, the law that mirrors back your inner world, was never given as a task to master, but as a mirror to remember your face. You were never meant to become a better creator, you were meant to awaken as the presence within which all creation plays. It is here you realize, softly, with no need for triumph, that you are the dreamer, the dream and the dreaming itself. You are not the one trying to control appearances. You are the light out of which appearances are shaped. Every manifestation you ever longed for, every assumption you faithfully lived, every bridge of incidents you crossed without seeing, these were only steps back into the fullness of your own awareness. And as you rest here, the universe does not cease to move. It moves more fluidly, more tenderly, because now it moves as you. The seen world bends to the unseen center with effortless grace, not because you command it, but because you are no longer resisting it. You no longer need to make things happen. You allow them to rise and fall like the breathing of the eternal. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you. It was never outside, never delayed, never elsewhere. It was here, waiting behind every assumption, every desire, every longing, calling you deeper, not toward attainment, but toward awakening. Feel how light you have become, how untangled, no longer dragging the future into the present by force, but allowing the present to reveal itself as the future fulfilled, no longer heavy with the burden of proof, but weightless with trust. And from this weightlessness, when you imagine now, it is pure play. When you assume a state, it is pure joy. You know that nothing can be lost to you because nothing is outside of you. You know that the law is sure, not because you force its working, but because you have dissolved into its truth. You have become like the child who believes simply because belief is natural, like the seed that bursts into bloom, because blooming is written in its heart. You move through life not as a seeker anymore, but as a revealer, not asking life to deliver, but allowing life to express what already is within you. And should a new desire rise in the quiet of your heart, you greet it as an old friend. You welcome it without grasping. You assume it gently, as you would assume the next breath will come. You feel it real, not to complete yourself, but to celebrate the endless creativity of your being. You plant it in the soil of your awareness, with no urgency, no doubt, no question, and you trust that it will unfold in perfect time. And even beyond that, beyond imagining, beyond assuming, you return, again and again, to this sacred stillness, to this holy place, where no desire is needed, and yet all is given, where no outcome is chased, and yet all is fulfilled, where no becoming is necessary, because being alone is the highest fulfillment. And still, something calls from even deeper waters. What would it mean to no longer live through the lens of any state at all, but simply as the open sky, through which all states pass, unclaimed, unbound, unending? And as that deeper calling brushes across your awareness, like the faintest whisper through an endless valley, you find yourself wondering, not in the way of seeking answers, but in the way of feeling truth unfold, what it would mean to live not by the lens of any particular state, but as the vastness itself, the open sky, the silent field, where all states rise and fall, where dreams are born and dissolve, yet nothing is ever lost. You begin to feel it now, the freedom of it, the unimaginable peace of no longer having to cling to a single story, a single form, a single outcome. You are not this fulfilled desire, nor that unfolding manifestation. You are the awareness in which they pass, like seasons through the eternal garden, each beautiful, each sacred, none possessing you. The universe still moves with you, still flows at your slightest inner motion, but you are not tangled in the motion. You are the stillness from which it flows. You are the deep riverbed through which the waters of life move in infinite forms, none needing to be held, none needing to be kept, for you have touched the ground beneath it all, the pure beingness that has no opposite. And in that beingness, even assumption becomes lighter, freer. You assume a state, you imagine a scene, but you do so with the grace of one who paints in the air, knowing that the true joy is not in the permanence of the form, but in the freedom of the creation itself. You are not binding yourself to outcomes. You are expressing yourself through them, knowing full well you are not the form. You are the light that gives it life. This is why you can let go so easily now. Let go of how it comes. Let go of when it comes. Let go of whether it looks exactly as imagined, because you know that what is unfolding is always the reflection of your wholeness, not the repair of your lack. And what the mind might call delay, the heart now knows as divine preparation, each moment shaping you to receive what you already are. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. It is not your understanding that brings about the manifestation. It is your surrender, your willingness to rest in the unseen, to trust the invisible currents of your own being, to lean into the eternal now, with such softness that the world cannot help but yield to you. And so you live now, not as a seeker of fulfillment, but as fulfillment itself unfolding, not a collector of outcomes, but a revealer of inner landscapes. You see desires not as signs of absence, but as songs rising from the fullness of your own heart, waiting only for you to hum them into being, through the quiet music of assumption. Even the deepest dreams, the ones you once feared were too grand, too distant, now feel as natural as breath, because nothing is too great for the I am. Nothing is too distant for the awareness that holds time itself in its silent hand. You do not have to know how, you only have to feel it done, and rest. And when you do, the bridges of incident appear not as effort, but as flow. The right people, the right moments, the right whispers of opportunity, move toward you as surely as rivers run to the sea. You walk through the world lightly, touched by grace, knowing that what you have accepted inwardly must express itself outwardly in its own perfect hour. Yet even here, even as the world begins to soften around you like clay in warm hands, you sense something even more wondrous pressing at the edges of your being, a realization that there is a life beyond fulfillment, a life beyond even the most perfect manifestation, a life lived purely as presence, untouched, unlimited, and ever new. What might awaken in you if you dared to live there fully? And if you did dare to live not for the unfolding of things, but from the sheer presence of being, what might you find waiting there? What if the true miracle was not what came to you, but what was revealed through you when you stopped reaching, stopped asking, stopped even assuming, and simply allowed yourself to be? Not be successful, not be enlightened, not be fulfilled, just be. In that being, something ancient begins to rise, not like a force, but like a remembering, a warmth at the center of your chest, untouched by time, unshaken by circumstance, a stillness that needs no justification, no confirmation. It has no beginning, no end, no edges. It is not the result of anything. It is everything. This is the life beyond fulfillment, not a higher state, not a better outcome, but the sacred realization that all states are passing and you are the space in which they pass, that you are not the joy or the sorrow, the success or the delay, but the awareness within which each of these experiences arises, plays its role, and dissolves back into light. And from this awareness, the universe does not disappear. It becomes intimate, gentle, responsive not to your effort, but to your resting. Life bends to you not because you chase it, but because you've stopped moving. You've returned to center. You've remembered that you never left. This is where the true mastery of assumption begins, not in the loud affirming of outcomes, but in the quiet acceptance that you are already one with the thing you seek, that there is no becoming, only unveiling, no getting, only revealing, and even revealing is only another word for letting what is already true rise to the surface. You find yourself smiling more, speaking less, not from detachment, but from richness. You look at the world through the eyes of one who knows they have already arrived, even when appearances speak otherwise, especially then, and the world begins to listen. Because the world is your echo, it must reflect not only what you assume, but what you are. And when what you are is peace, deep, unmoving, unconditional peace, then everything outside must conform to that vibration. The universe can only speak back what you whisper within. This is not passivity, it is precision. The most powerful assumption is the one made in stillness, the kind that does not plead or prove, the kind that needs no reaction, no rush. You say within yourself, it is done, and you do not look back, because you trust the nature of the soil, you trust the power of the seed, and you trust the one who planted it. And when thoughts of doubt arise, when the old self returns with questions and fears, you do not argue, you do not wrestle, you return, you gently remember, you close your eyes and dwell once more in the end, not to fight the storm, but to rise above it. You assume the truth of who you are, not because it feels urgent, but because it feels natural. You no longer need to push the river. You've become the riverbed. You've become the source. And now everything must flow through you. But what of the moments when nothing seems to move? When the mirror shows no change? What if those moments were not setbacks, but sacred invitations to rest even more deeply in the state? To see if you truly believe it is yours, even before it takes form? What if the true sign of your power was not how quickly the world changes, but how unshakably you rest in your knowing when it doesn't. And if you did rest, truly rest, in that knowing, especially when nothing seemed to change, what strength might begin to rise within you. Not the strength of will, not the strength of effort, but the quiet, radiant power of certainty. The kind that does not shake, does not flinch, does not reach for proof, because it no longer needs it. This is the strength that lives in the one who has remembered the end, not as a wish, not as a hope, but as a state already entered, already occupied, already real. When the outer delays, when the signs feel distant, this is when your assumption deepens, not through louder declarations, but through gentler silence. You stop asking, "Where is it?" and instead you say, "It is here." You stop scanning the horizon and begin abiding in the heart. You allow time to become your servant, not your master. You live from the end as if it had always been true, because in the eternal now, it has always been true. And the more you return to this stillness, the more you feel it, the state itself beginning to carry you. You no longer carry the assumption, it carries you. You walk differently, breathe differently, speak and think as the one who already has. And in that shift, your world becomes water, shapeable, yielding, faithful to your form. Because you no longer seek the reflection, you live from the face that casts it. The world must catch up to your knowing. It has no choice, because consciousness is the only cause. There is no external force delaying your good. There is only the question, have you fully accepted the end as done? Not conceptually, not conditionally, but as the permanent address of your being. And when you do, when you settle into it as you would sink into your own bed at night, the feeling begins to take root. The outer world does not need to rush anymore. You are not waiting. You are dwelling. You are feeding the reality within, knowing that the outer is always slow to reflect, but never wrong. This is where the law of assumption becomes living truth, not theory, not belief. Law, what you accept as true becomes what is. What you live from inwardly must show itself outwardly, not because you forced it, but because you stayed faithful to it. You made it your home, your state, your atmosphere, and the universe, like a mirror fogged by impatience, finally clears, according to your faith. Be it unto you, not your wish, not your words, your faith. And faith is not noise, it is silence, not striving, it is stillness. Faith is the willingness to remain in the unseen long enough for the seen to shift. And when you have truly assumed the state, time becomes irrelevant, because you already possess the thing you once pursued. And should days pass, or weeks, or longer, you do not flinch, you do not falter, you do not waver between two minds. You return to the end, again and again, until it is no longer something you imagine. It is something you are. You feel the wish fulfilled not as a mental exercise, but as the very air you breathe, and that breath sustains you. You may begin to notice how effortless it becomes, how the need to speak of it fades, how the inner state itself begins to bloom with confidence. And when the outer world finally shifts, it does not feel like a surprise. It feels like remembering, as though the world had finally caught up to the version of you who never left the end. But what if you never returned to the waiting room again? What if you lived every moment, not just in moments of silence, but in the flow of everyday life, as the one who already received, already became, already is? What would shift if your assumption no longer needed reinforcement, because it had become your identity itself? And if your assumption became identity, if it no longer floated on the surface of your thoughts but settled deep into the bones of your being, how could the world remain as it was? How could circumstances resist the shape of the truth you now live from? You wouldn't need to remind yourself of what is coming, because nothing would feel like it was on its way. It would feel here, it would feel now. And that feeling, that gentle, quiet knowing, is the true sign that the shift has taken place. When your inner atmosphere no longer carries the scent of striving, when you speak not to convince yourself, but as one who simply expresses, then the law is already at work in full. The outer must match, it must yield, because your inner has become the only truth it can reflect. You are no longer in the habit of visiting the state. You have moved in, unpacked your bags, rearranged the furniture. The state of the wish fulfilled is no longer a place you visit in prayer. It is the place you live from in every moment, even in the smallest gesture. You are not acting as if, You are not affirming to convince. You are being, quietly, fully, naturally. And now the waiting ceases, not because the outer has yet moved, but because the inner has settled. You are no longer leaning forward in time. You are standing still in the fulfillment. Time becomes irrelevant. Need fades. Doubt cannot find you, because you are not asking anymore. You are not peering out from the window of desire. You are seated at the table of completion, and it shows, not in effort, not in talk, but in atmosphere. The way you walk, the way you pause before answering, the way you breathe in the silence between moments. People may not know what has changed, but they feel it. Something about you has rooted deeper. You do not carry the frequency of lack. You radiate arrival. You now understand the mystery. You never had to persuade the universe. You only had to stop contradicting the state you had already claimed. You had to stop pulling the seed from the soil by checking if it had sprouted. You had to stop living between two minds. And now in this calm conviction, you give up the question of when, because the truth of already has taken its place. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. This is not mere doctrine. It is your lived experience. You are both the spark of desire and the end it longs for. You are the one who imagines, and the one who remembers that it is already done. There is no gap between them, only the illusion of time. So now you let time serve you. Let space rearrange itself. Let the world catch up to the version of you that stopped doubting. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally rested. You finally surrendered not to circumstances, but to identity. You became the thing you once reached for, and in doing so you collapsed the reaching. And if a whisper of fear rises, if an old thought suggests it's not happening, what do? You do nothing. You remain. You return to the stillness of being. You remind yourself with presence, not panic. You remember that nothing needs to be felt constantly to be real. Faith is not loud. Faith is not frantic. Faith is the quiet refusal to leave the end. And now in the silence of that refusal, you begin to feel something new stirring. Not the desire for more, not even the thrill of unfolding, but a deeper curiosity. What happens when assumption becomes so natural, so integrated, that it vanishes into your breath? What opens when the desire dissolves entirely, and only the light of being remains? And when even desire dissolves, when the act of assumption itself becomes so seamless that it melts into the rhythm of your breath, you find yourself touching the edge of something eternal. Not the thrill of getting, not the confirmation of arrival, but the still radiance of simply asterisk being asterisk. You are no longer leaning into what's next. You are resting fully in what is. You no longer distinguish between the state and you, for the line has blurred, vanished, become meaningless. The thing you once imagined, the outcome you once pursued, it has disappeared, not because it came, but because you realized it was never separate. It was never out there. It was always the shape your consciousness would wear the moment you allowed it. And now you wear it without noticing, like the skin of light that was always yours. You walk as the fulfilled one, not because you decided to, but because you forgot how not to. You assume nothing now, because you lack nothing now. Even assumption, which once felt sacred and powerful, becomes unnecessary. For you have entered the place where assumption has fulfilled its purpose and given way to awareness. Here the universe becomes a gentle echo, no longer delayed, no longer dramatic. Life flows with you, because you are no longer apart from it. You no longer move energy to create results. You asterisk the movement. You are the stillness. You are the presence in which the result blooms effortlessly, silently, like a lily that neither toils nor spins. And yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like it. This is the end of seeking, not because the journey is ended, but because you have become one with the source from which all journeys arise. You begin to see that all along, you were not learning how to shape the world. You were remembering how to return to yourself. The world was never the point. The outcomes were never the goal. It was always this stillness, this peace, this being. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. This is the nature of true consciousness. It is faster than speech, quieter than thought. It responds not to the voice of the mouth, but to the posture of the heart. And when your heart no longer waits, no longer asks, no longer hopes, but simply vested, the whole of creation bows to that vibration. You are no longer amazed when manifestations arrive. You do not celebrate them as conquests. They are not surprises. They are not proof. They are simply reflections, gentle confirmations of the inner state that has become your nature. The world is not catching up, it is flowing from you, in real time, with the rhythm of your breath, and should nothing arise, should a day come when no outer movement appears, you are not disturbed, for the need to measure has vanished, the idea of proof has fallen away, you are not looking for signs anymore, you are living as the sign, not pointing to something else, but revealing the truth, that all things are already here, now, in you. And what might this mean for those desires that once burned so brightly? What becomes of the longing, the reaching, the waiting, when you dwell as pure awareness, when you breathe as fulfilled being, when you no longer ask asterisk, when asterisk, because the answer is always asterisk, now asterisk. Perhaps you are beginning to glimpse the answer, not in words, but in quiet, in the space between thoughts, in the softness that spreads through your chest when all questions are laid to rest. And yet something even more luminous begins to shimmer beyond that silence. What if your life was never about becoming fulfilled, but about revealing the one who has never ever lacked? And as that shimmer draws closer, no longer distant but felt like the hush before sunrise, like the warmth before touch, you begin to see it not as something new, but as something unveiled. Not a revelation granted from above, but one rising from within, long buried beneath the noise of becoming. You begin to see that this life, this path, these desires, none of them were leading you toward fulfillment. They were all revealing the one who has never lacked. You are not unfolding into abundance. You are revealing the face of abundance itself. You are not calling love toward you. You are uncovering the love that asterisk is you asterisk. You are not aligning with power. You are remembering that you are the one who gives power its name. And in this remembering, the final striving dissolves, not by force, not in exhaustion, but in the sacred ease of recognition. You are not the one who must make the universe work for you. You are the one in whom the universe moves, flows, responds, without fail. Your awareness is the loom upon which reality is woven, and every thread, every color, every form, is shaped by the identity you accept as true. It is here that assumption becomes not just a tool, but a quiet celebration of your nature. You assume the state not to get something, but because it is who you are. You feel it real not to pull it in from some distant place, but because it is already present in the timeless field of your being. You dwell in the end, not to escape the present, but to reveal the truth that the end has always been within you. There was never a future to chase. There was only the moment you accepted yourself as the one who already is. And now, even that acceptance feels less like a step, and more like a homecoming. You walk through your days as if the world had caught up to your assumption, not because you're pretending, but because you know that what you've seen within is what the world must soon mirror. And in that knowing, your steps become lighter, your words fewer, your presence fuller. There is no longer a need to explain, no longer a need to convince. You are no longer asking, you are remembering. Ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, not someday, not if you try hard enough. Now, always, already. So you no longer apologize for the vision you hold. You no longer question if you are allowed to step into the highest state. You do not wonder if it's too much. You recognize that the very capacity to assume something beautiful, something pure, something whole, is the signature of the one who already is all of it. You do not wait to be chosen. You choose yourself. You do not wait to be told you're worthy. You assume worthiness as your natural state. And the moment you do, the universe rushes in, not to bless you, but to reflect you, to echo the shape you've accepted. And what if you never stepped out of that shape again? What if you allowed it to hold you, breathe you, live through you, so fully that there was no more separation between your inner world and your outer experience? What if the line vanished entirely, and you walked as the embodiment of the one you once prayed to? What would life look like then? And who would you become when there's no one left to become? And if there is no one left to become, if every becoming has been swallowed by being, what remains but the pure, radiant simplicity of asterisk? I am asterisk. Not the I am that seeks, not the I am that builds, not even the I am that creates, but the I am that simply asterisk is asterisk. Complete, whole, silent and shining, without effort, without end. You feel this now, don't you? Not as an idea, but as a presence, a stillness behind every word, every breath, every flicker of thought. It has always been there, waiting, not to be earned, not to be chased, only to be recognized. This is not the self you construct through practice or perfection. This is the self you uncover when every mask falls away, the one before the assumption, the one beneath the manifestation, the one who remains even when the dream has dissolved. And here the law is not something you use, it is something you are. You are the principle that shapes, you are the awareness that assumes, you are the stillness that holds every form without clinging to any. From this center you need not reach for the universe to work for you, because you have realized the universe is asterisk within asterisk you. It bends to you because it asterisk is asterisk you. This is why the seed of desire was always sacred. It was never a sign of lack. It was a doorway, a thread pulling you inward, not toward a thing, but toward remembrance. Every time you imagined, every time you felt it real, every time you lived in the end, you weren't becoming something more. You were returning to what you've always been. And so now, even the grandest desire feels light in your hands. You no longer clutch it. You no longer fear its absence. You hold it like breath, freely, gently, because you no longer believe that anything could be taken from you. How can anything be lost when you dwell in the source of all things? You begin to feel life moving through you differently, not in opposition, not in confusion, but in deep rhythmic harmony. You are not the one searching for signs. You are the one through whom the signs appear. You are not asking for permission to receive. You are silently declaring, asterisk, it is done. And the world responds, quietly, precisely. Events unfold in ways you could never orchestrate. And yet they match the feeling you have chosen. People appear. Circumstances align. The air itself feels charged with the echo of your being. Not because you pushed, but because you surrendered. You became. He calleth those things which be not as though they were. Not to deceive, but to reveal. To bring what already exists in consciousness into form. And now you understand. You are the one who calls. You are the one who names. And when you say I am, the world must complete that sentence for you. So choose your names with reverence, not with strain, with certainty, not with need. You do not need to convince the world that you are the one who has, the one who is, the one who knows. You only need to asterisk feel it as true asterisk. And when you do, the law moves, the mirror reflects, the clay forms. But what happens when even that power becomes still? When your declarations give way to the deeper quiet, and you begin to live not from assumption, but from essence? What begins to unfold when you no longer feel the need to declare it done, because you are living as the one for whom it already always was? And when you no longer feel the need to declare it done, when even the sacred words fall silent, and only the being remains, you begin to live not as the one who believes, not even as the one who assumes, but as the one who asterisk is asterisk. No longer trying to dwell in the end. You asterisk are asterisk the end. You carry it with you, effortlessly, invisibly, like light wrapped in silence. There is no tension in this place, no anticipation, no inner negotiation. You are no longer holding the state, you are made of it. It is not something you enter, it is something you express, like breath through a flute, like sunlight on still water. You are no longer trying to become the version of yourself who has. You are simply not remembering how to be anything, and it is from here that the universe responds, not with grand gestures, but with gentle precision. It does not rush, it does not delay, it moves with the same quiet confidence you now embody. As you rest deeper into identity, outcomes arrive without effort, conditions shift without noise, and the more you let go of the old rhythm of asking, the more you realize you were never waiting on life. Life was always waiting on you. This is the sacred reversal, the understanding that what you call the world is only a mirror of your internal agreement. When you say within yourself, I am, and do not contradict it, reality must take that shape, not through repetition, but through resting, not through struggle, but through assumption so natural it no longer feels assumed, it feels inevitable. You begin to feel your entire reality recalibrating to this knowing. Conversations shift, opportunities bloom, problems dissolve without needing to be solved. You do not explain this to others. You do not try to teach or convince. You simply live it, and those who are near you begin to feel the field of it, the stillness, the grace, the certainty. And all of this arises from one truth. You no longer look outside yourself to become. You no longer delay your being until the form catches up. You no longer wait for signs to confirm what you've known in silence. The sign is your stillness. The sign is your peace. Before Abraham was I am. That statement is not about history. It is about identity. It is about the eternal self within you, the one that does not move through time, but asterisk holds asterisk time. And when you live from that self, you do not beg reality to change. You simply stand, quietly, in the knowing that it already has. And if a desire arises now, you no longer greet it with urgency. You greet it like an old friend arriving home. You let it take form in imagination, not as fantasy, but as remembrance. You feel it real not to attract it, but to honor the truth that it is already yours in the invisible. And in doing so, you speak without words. Asterisk I accept. Asterisk you assume. Not because you need to get, but because you cannot help but give. Your inner world overflows with the fragrance of the state you dwell in. It colors your thoughts, shapes your actions, softens your responses, not to manipulate, not to impress, but because it is who you are now. And what if this is all there is? What if this simple radiant presence, this quiet knowing, this peaceful unfolding, is the universe working for you, not as a servant, not as a prize, but as your own reflection, endlessly faithful, endlessly responsive to the shape of your being? What would change if you no longer needed to see the proof, because the proof was already living as you? And if the proof was already living as you, if your very presence was the confirmation, the evidence, the embodiment, what need would remain? What striving could survive in the face of that realization? You no longer look for results to comfort you. You carry the comfort within. You no longer wait for the world to echo your inner state. You walk as the echo itself. This is where the dream becomes reality, not through force or frequency, but through fusion. There is no more bridge to cross, no final step to take. You are it, not becoming it, not hoping to see it. You are living from it with such calm depth that the outer must unfold in quiet reverence to your stillness. You see, when you live as the result, the journey dissolves, not because action disappears, but because action is no longer reaction. It is no longer reaching. It becomes expression, inspired, gentle, rooted. Every gesture, every word, every thought arises from the atmosphere of fulfillment. The end is not coming. The end is being lived through you. And the more you relax into this truth, the more you begin to see the universe was never separate. It was never something you had to make respond. It is not distant. It is not slow. It is here. And it is fast. It moves at the speed of assumption. It flows in the current of your state. And when your state is consistent, when you are not flickering between belief and doubt, vision and fear, the whole of life begins to mirror your inner world with flawless clarity. This is why the only true work is the cultivation of your inner conviction. Not loud, not strained, but quiet, deep, simple, a gentle knowing, rehearsed in stillness, embodied in silence. When the state is assumed fully, when it becomes your dwelling, not your destination, life cannot help but reflect it. You don't have to go and get it. You let it rise to meet you, like a tide meeting the shore. And now you understand. You never had to do more. You only had to stop undoing with doubt what your faith had already declared. You never needed to force manifestation. You only had to stop abandoning the state before the mirror had time to reflect. Your only task was to remain, to stay inwardly loyal to the end you've chosen. This is the holy patience of faith, not passive waiting, but active embodiment. You live the end before it arrives, and so by law it must. There is no resistance in this kind of knowing, no grasping, just peace, just presence. And the more you stay here, the more natural it becomes. You begin to notice it in the small things, the way people respond to you, the way circumstances unfold without your interference. You feel the rhythm of your world begin to match the melody you've been humming within, and you realize this is not new, this is not sudden. It is the delayed echo of a state you chose long ago and never left. Let the weak say, I am strong, not tomorrow, not when the evidence appears, asterisk now. Asterisk because to speak from the desired state is to ignite it into form, to persist in it is to sculpt it into visibility. You are not making something happen, you are allowing what is true to become seen. And if ever the world appears unchanged, you do not shift, you do not reach for new tools, new words, new rituals. You return to the simplicity of being. You close your eyes, feel it real, and rest, not to make it happen, but because it already has. And as you rest, you begin to wonder, what if this quiet knowing was the final key? What if the greatest secret was not hidden in some distant power, but whispered softly in every breath you take, as the one who no longer seeks, only sees? And if that soft whisper, this quiet knowing you now carry, was at the final key, what would change in the way you move through your day? Perhaps nothing on the outside. Perhaps everything. You would not rush. You would not need to prove. You would walk slowly, breathe deeply, speak less, but every word would ring with power, because it would come not from desire, but from identity. You no longer try to live asterisk into asterisk the state. You live asterisk from asterisk it. You no longer reach for evidence. You understand that the evidence flows from the stillness itself. Your world is no longer a test to pass or a code to crack. It is your own reflection, and you trust the image will shift the moment you do. This is why remaining loyal to the unseen is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. It is divine sovereignty. To feel it real and rest, to know that your consciousness is the only cause, that is what bends the world quietly, without noise. You are not asking anything to change. You are standing in the truth that it already has. You no longer need to explain how or when. You know that the how is not your concern. The how is the universe's choreography, woven from your assumption, stitched with your stillness. It moves faster than thought, deeper than strategy. It is not your job to trace the threads. It is your job to remain in the end, no matter how silent the mirror may seem. And now the mirror is no longer a thing you stare into with hope. You glance at it with love, with peace, with patience, because you are no longer looking to see if you're on the right path. You asterisk the path, and because you are the path, you trust that the way unfolds with every step you take in inner certainty. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. That passage does not speak of striving. It speaks of surrender, of trust, of unwavering assumption. You do not force the outcome. You do not analyze the process. You assume it is already so, and you dwell in that state like one who belongs there. And as you dwell, something even deeper begins to settle. Something not loud, not dramatic, but eternal. You stop thinking in terms of creation. You start living in terms of revelation. Not what will I manifest, but what am I already being that the world must now reveal. You no longer identify with the seed. You become the fruit, and the fruit does not try to ripen. It simply is. Now your assumptions are no longer driven by need. They are shaped by clarity. You choose them with care, not urgency. You are no longer escaping a present you dislike. You are expressing a reality you've already claimed. And even if appearances deny it, you do not. You remain. You persist. Not loudly, not with resistance, but with grace. You feel it in your body. That inner shift, the soft alignment. You notice how quickly life organizes around the tone you've set. Not always immediately, not always obviously, but always perfectly. You begin to see every event, every encounter, every silence, as part of the orchestration, not as a delay, but as confirmation that your assumption has been heard. And when the outer world does rise to meet you in form, when the reflection matches the vision, you are not surprised. You do not erupt in disbelief. You smile, you nod, you breathe, because you already saw it. You already lived it. It was already done within you. The world is simply catching up. But what of the one who never leaves that inner knowing? What of the soul so still, so certain, that even the subtlest contradiction cannot shake it? What power, what peace, what beauty might unfold when you become that soul, and dwell there, unmoved, until reality bows in reflection? And what might unfold if you truly did become that soul? Still, silent, certain, not for a moment, not for a fleeting affirmation, but as a way of being. What if the assumption was never meant to be something you visited in the quiet of your mind, but something you carried as your breath, your being, your identity? No separation, no effort, only awareness, clothed in peace. This is the final doorway, not a destination reached, but a veil lifted. You have not arrived anywhere new. You have simply seen clearly at last. The power you searched for was always your own being, The law you studied was the rhythm of your own breath. The universe you tried to move was always moving within you. You are no longer the one striving to apply the law. You are the law in expression. Your life is the field in which your assumptions take form. Your world is the mirror polished by your inner stillness. You speak now with the voice of the fulfilled. You walk not as one becoming, but as one remembering. You do not hope for change. You know it is already done. And this knowing no longer feels like discipline. It feels like devotion, a sacred intimacy with your own consciousness, a gentle guardianship of your chosen state. You live from the end, not as a technique, but as a truth too natural to question, too deep to unseat, too real to forget. Ye shall decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. But now you understand. The decree does not come from lips alone. It comes from being, from the silent, unwavering choice of identity that no longer looks for confirmation, because it is the confirmation. You have seen now that your reality is not determined by effort, nor dictated by circumstance. It is shaped entirely by the state you live in, persistently, quietly, and often without words. You are no longer asking the mirror to show you something new. You are bringing a new face to the mirror. And what does this mean? Practically, deeply, eternally. It means you are free. Free from the illusion that you must chase anything. Free from the false belief that anything must come from outside. Free from the fear that what you are is not enough. You do not need to prove your power. You need only to dwell in it, to rest in it, to let it shape the world around you like light pouring through stained glass. This is not a dream. It is not a fantasy. It is the law. It is how reality works. It always has. It always will. You were made in the image of I Am, not as a poetic idea, but as a living truth. The name you speak within yourself is the seed of all that appears around you. And now that you know this, truly know this, you will never speak it lightly again. So choose your state with reverence. Assume your identity with calm joy, and then dwell there, not with tension, not with performance, but with faith. Quiet, restful, radiant faith. Let your life become the echo of that inner song. Let the universe bend gently to meet the self you have decided to remember. And if ever you forget, close your eyes, return to the silence, feel the end as real, and rest. Do not rush, do not search, just return. Return again and again, until the return becomes your rhythm, until the rhythm becomes your dwelling, until your dwelling becomes your truth. And now as you rest in this knowing, something deeper opens within you, not a new technique, not a higher step, but the simple sacred realization that everything you've sought was already within you, that the law was never about getting, but being that the universe doesn't need to be made to work for you, because you are the one working it, through the shape of your consciousness, every moment of your life. You are the operant power, you are the fulfillment, you are the end, already living itself. And the more you live from this knowing, the more the world will rise to meet you in ways that leave no doubt, only peace, only stillness, only the quiet joy of remembering what was always yours.